Alright, so in this video we'll review adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing complex numbers. Before we begin, we have to review that our final answer needs to be in the form of A plus BI, where A is our real number and BI is our imaginary number. So with all these problems which I'm about to show you, we have to make sure that we simplify them and put it into the correct form. So for the first problem of addition, when you're adding complex numbers, we have to make sure that we're adding the real part of the complex number and the imaginary part of the complex number. So in this case, our real part on the line is 5 and 2. That's our real part. And our imaginary part is the 3i and the 7i. So when we add these, we see that when we add our real part first, it comes out to be 7. And then when we add our imaginary part, it comes out to be plus 10i. Since this is in the correct form, we could box this as our final answer. Alright, so let's try another one. 12 plus 14i plus 3 minus 2i. Let's do our reals first. Our real numbers are our 12 and our 3, and our imaginary number is our 14i and negative 2i. So when we add up our real numbers, we get 15. And when we add up our imaginary numbers, we get 14i plus a negative 2i, which is 12i. Again, we check to make sure it's in the correct form, A plus BI, and it is, so that would be our final answer. Alright, so subtraction works the same. The only thing that we have to remember is that this negative in front of our second parentheses needs to be distributed. So I'll do that right now. We'll add, we'll make this an addition sign. We'll then put a negative 3 and a negative 5 so we don't forget. Let's underline our real numbers, which is our 9 and our 3, and our imaginary numbers, which is our 11 and our now negative 5i. So when we add our real numbers, we get 9 plus a negative 3, which is 6, and 11i plus a negative 5 becomes a plus 6i. Again, it's in the correct form, so we're able to box it. With subtraction problems, it's always easy to turn into an addition problem. Alright, for the next subtraction problem, we have 12 plus 14i in parentheses minus, in parentheses, 3 minus 2i. Again, let's first change this into an addition problem by making the subtraction sign as a plus, and then distributing that negative into our parentheses as a negative 3 and a plus 2i. We then underline our real numbers, which is our 12 and our 3, and we could underline our imaginary numbers as 14i and 2i. When we do our addition, we get 12 plus a negative 3, which is 9, plus our imaginary numbers are 14i plus a positive 2i, which comes out to be plus 16i. Again, this is in the correct form, so we are able to box it in. Alright, so now multiplication. With multiplication, we don't have to necessarily figure out what our real and what our imaginary numbers are. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to do just distribution. We're just going to distribute both numbers from our original parentheses into our second parentheses. So what we're doing is, I'll just take another marker. We're going to do a 2 into 4 and a 2 into 5i, like so. And then we're going to do a 3i into 4 and a 3i into 5i. It's just a double distribution. You may call it FOIL. It's the same principle. So what we get for our final answer is 2 times 4, which is 8. Then we'll do 2 times 5i, which 2 times 5i, which comes out to be plus 10i. We then get 3i times 4, which is plus 12i. And we get 3i times 5i, which is plus 15i squared. We then want to combine like terms, so we get 8 plus 22i plus 15 I squared. All right, now this is where we have to make sure we understand what I squared is. Now in class we went over that I squared, I put in a different color, I squared is equal to -1. Now that's useful because we know that the final answer has to be in the form of a plus bi, and this is not in that form. So what you want to do is you want to substitute now that -1 in for any I squareds that you have. So we'll substitute that in. We only have one I squared, so we'll substitute in right there as 15 times -1. And what we get is that 8 plus 22i minus 15. We combined our like terms, and we get that -7 plus 22i. And since that is in the correct form, this is our final answer. Alright, and now for division. With division, we need to now learn a new term, which is our complex conjugate. Now, what exactly is our complex conjugate? Well, in order to solve this, we need to multiply the entire thing by that complex conjugate. So we get that 4 plus 2i over 3 minus I times our complex conjugate, which means we negate our I in our denominator, and we create that fraction of 3 plus I divided by 3 plus I. Now that will allow us to solve a division of complex numbers. So now basically what we've turned this problem into is a FOIL on top and a FOIL on the bottom, or a double distribution on top and a double distribution on the bottom. So what we get is from here, let's do the top first. 4 times a 3, I'll put the marks down so we can actually see exactly what we're doing. So we're going to put the 4 in here, and we're going to also distribute that 4 in here, like so. And then we're going to take that 2i and put it in here, and take that 2i and multiply it over here. Okay, so that's what we're doing. So 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times I is plus 4i. 2i times 3 is plus 6i. And 2i times I is positive 2i squared. That is now our numerator. Our denominator, we're going to do the same thing. We get 3 times a 3, which is a 9. We get 3 times a positive I, which is a 3i. Let me fix that plus sign. Good. We get a negative I and a 3, which is a negative 3i. And we get a negative I and an I, which is a negative I squared. So it's nice. We can see that those I terms will cancel out in the denominator. So I'll rewrite first our numerator. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute the information that we know that. Well, first, you know what? Let's combine like terms. We'll combine like terms, and we'll get 10i. And we're going to keep the I squared in for right now. Keep the I squared in. Do the same thing in the denominator. We're going to combine like terms. We see that cancels out, and that becomes 0. And we get a negative I squared. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to substitute in that -1 for our I squareds. So we get 12 plus 10i, and now we're going to substitute that -1 in, so we get plus 2 times -1. That's substitution. On the bottom we get 9 plus a negative I times -1. Now after that substitution, we further simplify. We get 12 plus 10i minus 2. And in the denominator we get 9 plus 1. So we combine those like terms, and we get that 10 plus 10i, and that's all over 10. So this is going to simplify nicely. And we get that the final answer is 10 divided by 10 is 1, and 10i divided by 10 is I. This is in the form of a plus bi, so this will be our final answer.